This is Modern Persian Food,
a culinary podcast for today's food enthusiast.
We talk about classic Persian flavors,
modern recipes,
and embracing culture and identity through food.
I'm Bita.
And I'm also Bita.
Welcome to our show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Modern Persian Food Podcast. This is episode number 142, and we are deep diving into tomatoes in Persian cuisine today. Tomatoes are one of the most popular ingredients in Persian cooking. They run the gamut from fresh salads to soups to stews. They are almost as versatile as onions in our cuisine, and we are dedicating today's episode to chatting more about it. I'm here with my co-host Bita. Hi, Bita June.
Hi.
I'm happy to be talking about tomatoes today. I just feel like it's such a part of Persian cuisine that it definitely deserves its own episode.
Yeah, I like growing them. If you have a home garden, it's tomato season. And even if you don't have a home garden, they're more delicious in the summertime.
Absolutely.
They come in so many forms, and that's kind of fun. These days, there's cherry tomatoes. Those used to be my favorite as a kid. My dad would grow all these cherry tomatoes. It was kind of like one of the only things I did with him was to help him water the garden. He'd let me pick cherry tomatoes off because they're so good. And yeah, so there's little cherry tomatoes. There's the pear-shaped little ones that come in different colors. There's the big, delicious heirloom tomatoes.
Yes.
Tomatoes on the vine. And yeah, they are a big part of Persian cuisine. I remember as a kid hearing from other kids that they didn't like them, that tomatoes are gross, and a lot of people actually don't love them. And that was always surprising to me. I was like, wow, what's not to love about them? Because we had them so much.
Yeah. As a kid, and even now as an adult, one of my favorite ways to have tomatoes is in a delicious salad Shirazi with a lemony vinaigrette dressing and salt and the cucumbers and onions. So that's definitely a fun way to have it. I couldn't even imagine not eating tomatoes as a kid in that salad Shirazi.
That's the way we mostly use the fresh tomatoes in Persian cuisine. I had a funny correlation the other day, and when we were having salad Shirazi, that it's almost like a Persian salsa fresca. It's almost the same ingredients in salad Shirazi.
Yeah, I think really the lemon juice is kind of the biggest differentiator for me. Either lemon juice, or you can use ab-gure, which is like a verjus, like a sour grape juice.
Yeah, it's really good with lime juice too.
Yeah. So yes, fresh in salads, especially salad Shirazi is a great one. Even just sliced or kind of cut up with a little bit of salt on the side of your plate is always fun, or put it in your little mortadella sandwich that you're going to be having on a Persian picnic this summer. And to that point, this is part of our summer series collection that we're doing. We talked about juja kebab, we talked about Persian picnics, we talked about corn last week, and this week we're rounding it out with the Persian tomatoes. And specifically, one way that you can also enjoy it this summer, if we're keeping in the theme of grilling like we did in some of the past episodes, is you take that fresh tomato and you put it straight on the grill and you get a nice char on it. And I can have that with chola kebab or with the rice, really with other grilled foods. Do you guys do that when you're grilling?
Oh, yeah. When we're grilling and when we're ordering out, we ask for extra grilled tomatoes. And the type that works best, the variety of tomato that works best for grilling is the Roma tomato. And that's kind of the medium size, oblong, sort of oval tomato, Italian, is really good for grilling. And it's just delicious with kebabs. That's the traditional way that it's served, is with kebab.
Do you skewer your tomatoes before you grill them, or do you put them straight on the grill?
I skewer them because we're typically also having other vegetables and onions, and so I skewer them. I've even tried putting them in my air fryer, which has mixed results. It's a little messy, but yeah. So you kind of want a firmer tomato, and they are cooked whole when they're grilled. You keep the tomato whole.
I mean, if you keep them whole, then it's kind of keeping all the juices in as much as you can. And it gets like this like dark char on the outside of it. Again, it takes a little bit of time to actually get the color and get the char on it, but it gets that smoky flavor from the barbecue, from the grill, and it kind of tenderizes a little bit in the inside. It's a perfect little accompaniment to rice that you're having with like kebabs. So it's definitely delicious, and you can put a little bit of sumac or salt on top of it as well and make it super delicious.
Yeah. I'm having a flashback to the conversation we had with Reza Jax a few weeks back, and he makes a kebab kubide stovetop, and he adds his tomato right inside of the one pot dish.
Yeah, exactly. So to that point, you can also use the stovetop. If you don't have access to a barbecue, you can definitely char up some tomatoes just right on your stove. You could put a little bit of oil to help that out. And I've definitely done that as well when you're doing kind of like more kebab style inside cooking kebab, or to your point, Reza Jax's kebab tabe recipe.
Good. So the other form of tomatoes that we see quite a bit in soups and stews is a stewed tomato. Do you use stewed tomato in your Persian cooking at all, Bita June?
Yeah, definitely. There are some dishes that like really kind of have that tomato, like for example, like a khoresh badamjun, or some of the khoresh that have like some tomato sauce. You can definitely either use like, stewed tomatoes that you already buy stewed, or you can just use fresh tomatoes and kind of cook them down. But yeah, there's definitely some recipes that really benefit from having that. How about you? Do you use the stewed tomatoes?
Mostly with soups. I do use it in my mom's abgusht recipe. That's a soup, or like a thick, hearty soup that, at least in my mom's recipe, has tomatoes, sometimes some bell pepper, chickpeas, onions, and it is like a stewed tomato-based soup. The way my mom makes it, and delicious spices, and she uses stewed beef when she makes it. And have you ever gotten fire roasted stewed tomatoes? I love the flavor of fire roasted anything, and so sometimes I'll swap that in for recipes that call for stewed tomatoes.
Yeah, I don't think I've really used the fire roasted ones for Persian cooking, but I've definitely used the fire roasted ones. And just a couple points on your mom's abgusht. I love abgusht. There is so many different recipes for abgusht. So just calling it out there, your mom uses more of a tomato-based one. My mom uses more of a like herb-based one. So there are different versions, but I think the thing to call out about the abgusht is kind of like a soup. And then a lot of times it's served with like braised meats and beans that you have on the side. They call it like a gusht kubide. Kind of have that as like a little bit of side with some sangak bread and fresh herbs and some torshi. So we haven't talked about abgusht for a while. So that was like, oh my God, I want some now.
It's kind of a winter food. My family's from Azerbaijan on both sides, Tabriz type of area. So it's probably regional in what, variation of recipe, family to family, region to region.
Yeah. To your point that it is regional and different from family to family, some of the dishes that we're going to talk about may or may not use this tomato product based on where you're from. So what we're talking about is tomato paste. Tomato paste is definitely used in a ton of dishes. How people use a tomato paste, it's in a can or a jar. And the best way that I've learned to use a tomato paste is actually try to saute it or fry it a little bit before you actually add more liquid to the dish. So you can fry it like in the bottom of your pot as you're like building the different layers of your khoresh, for example. You can fry it in a little bit of oil, and that'll really cook out any raw taste to it and also make it more rich. And kind of like brightens up the tomato paste. So that's kind of like a tip of how to get the most out of your tomato paste. But some regional differeces, like for example, khoresh karafs, I love adding tomato paste to it, but I think some versions don't include any tomato paste.
Yeah, my mom's I don't think does. And your way of cooking down the tomato paste is almost like, in my head, it's probably not the proper cooking term, but it's like caramelizing it. It's almost cooking it for like 5 minutes, like 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah. And you have to keep kind of like stirring it and mixing it a little bit.
Yeah. And to me, it almost makes it sweeter. I love that taste.
Yeah, it intensifies it a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
And that's used in like macaroni. What are some other recipes? I use it in my crème.
Yeah, for sure. So I mentioned bademjun. Of course, the bademjun is an eggplant stew. That definitely, if it has like the real tomatoes or tomato paste added to that. Khoresh bamiye, which is an okra stew, one of my all-time favorites that has tomato paste. Again, variations, region to region.
Crème is yellow split pea stew that you eat with rice that I use it for. And it kind of has a lot of things going on because it's got the tomato paste. It also has the sour.
Yeah, and a lot of times they'll actually serve the khayme with like little French fries on top of it too.
Yes, and macaroni is the Persian pasta.
Yeah, we had Chef Orly giving us a play-by-play of how to make that with tahdig. So if people haven't listened to that episode, definitely download and listen to that episode with Chef Orly.
Yeah, and one of the differentiators is that the Persian baked spaghetti dish is not saucy. It's kind of mostly like the tomato paste, onion, meat mixture.
Right, it's a little more dry. Yeah. Hi, friends. Jumping in to let you know that we're doing a listener survey this month, and we'd love to get your input. It's only 10 questions long, and it'll give you a chance to not only let us know how we're doing, but what type of content you want to hear from us in the future. It's on our website, modernpersianfood.com, our Instagram handle, Modern Persian Food, and we'll include the link in our newsletter too. Thank you so much for being part of our journey. Now back to the show. Some other dishes that we add tomato paste to, lubio polo, one of our favorites.
Oh, yeah.
Lubio polo is green beans, sauteed green beans and onions in like a tomato paste or tomato sauce mixed with kind of really your choice of meat and layered in the rice and cooked with that. One of our family favorites, one of my favorites. I love having it with like plain yogurt on the side and some onion, raw onion on there too. That's definitely a dish that uses tomato paste. There's also like Istanbuli polo, which is kind of like more of a tomato rice dish. Tomatoes, I think, are such a versatile ingredient. And, we just kind of went over a bunch of different ways that a tomato is used in the different forms. So we're hoping that you can utilize some of this delicious seasonal ingredient. You mentioned heirloom tomatoes, my favorite. I love it. I love just like making this very simple salad with that, having some toasted bread, some fresh herbs from basil, maybe a little splash of balsamic vinegar, and having some heirloom tomatoes, one of my favorites. So definitely, hopefully everyone could get their hands on some of that, maybe from their garden or from their local store.
Yeah, there's a soup that I meant to mention, which it may or may not be actually of Persian origin, but my mom makes it a lot, is a borscht.
Oh.
Borscht. And she makes it sometimes with cabbage. It's definitely tomato-based. She probably uses tomato sauce. And my guess is by the name of it that it's Russian, but that is definitely a tomato-based soup. So that came to mind for me as well.
Okay, great. If we wanted to take it to breakfast, you can make a Persian-style omelette.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of basically fresh tomatoes diced up and cooked with eggs. Kind of scramble it together for more like omelette style, or if you want to kind of stew the tomatoes and poach the eggs in it, kind of more like shashuka style. So definitely any meal of the day you can fit tomatoes in.
Definitely. Well, we've got an ATB. We've got an Ask the Beets today. Today's Ask the Beets comes from Sarah, who lives in Oakland, and she wants to know, Beta and Beta, what's your favorite kitchen or cooking shortcut right now?
Ho, ho, ho. Sarah, you're asking the right girls about this.
Yeah. Do we have another hour? Because this is our jam.
Yeah.
This is what we're about.
Yeah, exactly. I love taking shortcuts. I don't look at it as a bad thing. I look at it as a efficiency thing of how can I get the most flavor and the best food in the shortest amount of time. I love using shortcuts. So there's been a lot of conversation about fesenjoon around my life lately. A lot of people, when they hear that I have a podcast or we're talking about Persian food, fesenjoon always comes up because it is so delicious and it just has the balance of the flavors. For people who don't know, fesenjoon is a stew that we serve over rice that is made with walnuts and pomegranate molasses, and you can add meat to it if you like. And it's super delicious. It can remind people of a mole type of dish and consistency. For that recipe, one of my favorite shortcuts is getting ground walnuts. And I typically have ground walnuts stashed in my freezer for any time I want to make like a fish or make like a dish that has ground walnuts in it, because you don't need to sort the walnut. You know, if you're buying real walnuts, then, you know, you don't need to shell them, but you can usually get like kind of like shelled walnuts. But a lot of the times you have to really go through them because they will have kind of like the inside piece of the walnut, which is hard and inedible, in the walnut. So you kind of have to like sort that. So I personally love getting the ground up version because it's like a few steps taken care of. And then I don't need to worry about grinding them up or using a food processor or, you know, grinder to do that. It saves a lot of time for me. So that's a top one. If I wanted to pick another shortcut, is kind of like in the produce section. There's a lot of prepped ingredients ready to go. You know, you can find like chopped up onions in the produce department all ready to go. So you can just get that and throw it into the pot and get the base of a khoresh going. Or another favorite in the produce section is the cooked beets. I love using the cooked beets, throw them on salads, but I really enjoy making a mosto labu, which is basically I'll get the cooked beets, I'll grate them on like a box grater into a bowl, add yogurt, I put a splash of vinegar, a little salt and pepper, and I have like a really fun, vibrant dip/side that I can serve alongside, you know, some kebabs or just like as an appetizer with crackers and crudité. So my shortcuts are kind of really just utilizing products that have already been prepped and ready to go so that I can cook faster and more efficiently when I get the opportunity to.
I love that. You know, we used to have a section we trialed for a little while called Beets Cheats because we have so many.
Yeah.
And I think that we could have a whole nother show on this. So I have so many and I can't choose. I'm just going to list them. I'm not going to go into tons of detail, but you know, if any like really stick out to you, let us know and maybe we can turn it into a whole episode for you. But
good idea.
I think it's really important just to make it happen. We got to just make meals happen. And if that means opening a can or what have you, or using a rice cooker, that's okay. And those are two things on my list. So I have a lot of Persian markets near me, which I'm lucky for. I will buy jarred khoresh, which is already ready to go. It's just such a time saver. So I think that the Persian stews that we enjoy with rice are really time consuming. And there is a brand that makes a really delicious version to me. And so I will start it and use it as a starter and add things to it. And they don't have meat. And so I can either make it vegetarian or vegan or add meat. So I love those. I'm okay with canned beans. I'm always looking to add fiber, protein. And so I do like cooking lentils from dry. That's the one bean that I prefer to cook. I like the flavor of, and they're not hard. I just cook it on, you know, like a low simmer. But most beans, I will just open a can and that's fine to me. I use a rice cooker many times a week. I have a little mini one. They're so easy. I even cook rice for my dogs and I mix it with their food.
Okay.
And then the last one, which I know there's people that are totally against this. I got it from my mama in June, so take it to her. But I do sometimes put ketchup in my cooking, in the cooking down stage. I get hate mail, man. I mean, I know that it's not authentic and some people are so against ketchup and I get like daily, like, you don't put ketchup in that kind of stuff, but it's okay. I can take it. My girls like my cooking. My family likes my cooking. So they're used to it. And really, essentially, tomato paste is more pure. It's more delicious. It works better and it's better for you. But once in a while, I don't have any left because I use it a lot. All right. And so then I will just add a little bit of ketchup. And ketchup is a more processed form. It has sugar in it. I get it. But it does work in a pinch. And if you need a little bit of a sweet taste, it actually does work in that way. That's it. That's all mine.
Yeah, those are great. Those are all great. And yeah, for sure, canned beans, because I mean, if I'm going to pull together like an aşırı, if I want to pull that together in, you know, in a short amount of time, I'm definitely using canned beans. And that's a really great tip too. So there's nothing wrong with using them. And a lot of times the frozen ingredients and, you know, canned ingredients, they're packaged at their peak ripeness. So maybe you're even going to get better than what it's available at your market if the market doesn't have a ton of fresh stuff and it's in the middle of a season that it doesn't have that item.
Yeah, and the rice cooker, I mean, it's just personal preference, I guess, but to me, I literally just, you could just put it all in there. You know, you're supposed to rinse your rice until the water is clear and all these steps, soak your rice. Sometimes I just put it all in there, and turn it on. And that's how easy it is. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Those are all great tips. Thank you so much, Sarah, for the question. And as a reminder to everybody, if you want to have your question featured on the show, the Modern Persian Food Podcast, send us a note, send us a message, however way you want to get a message over to us. Let us know and we will answer it on the show for you. Thank you, everyone. And until next time, bye-bye.
Till next time. Bye.
You've been listening to the Modern Persian Food Podcast with Bita and Bita. Thanks for spending time with us. If you've enjoyed what you heard today, consider telling a friend or giving us a good rating. You can subscribe to our show for free on your favorite podcasting app or find us online at modernpersianfood.com or on Instagram for the recipes and information we talked about today. We'd love to hear your thoughts and see you next time.